Hey, what's up, everybody? Again, we actually just finished up with Chauncey Barnes, so she is go making some money, and now I got my dear friend Pastor Tyler Barnes here. So we're gonna just continue the conversation about my friend. What's up?
Not a whole lot, just living the dream, getting to do the things I love. So
That's right. Loving people, drinking coffee.
yeah, doing mission work here, drinking good coffee, reading good books, preparing messages for our Sunday that's coming up, and getting to spend some time with you. So
I know, man. We should go.
What more could you want?
I mean, not much. Playing with kids, hanging out with the wife. Those are the other two things.
Well, we did just get back from a lunch date, so we did already get some of that in, and we'll be hanging out with our daughter tonight.
Husbands, listen.
Yeah, I think I'm hitting all my 7 things to have a successful day.
Bam! I love it. And where does that come from?
So that actually comes from my good friend Roger, who has
That's right.
a wonderful little thing through hey, what does your ideal day look like? And so he's one of the guys you can talk to if you're looking to grow personally or as a leader.
Absolutely. It's fun to do because we need to do those things. Because most people feel really lost about their day, and they roll out of bed, they go to work, and it's even worse now because people literally roll out of bed and over to their computer.
That's right. Everyone's working remote, and so it's real easy to just roll over, jump on, do some stuff on the computer, and then you're done, and you're back on social media, and all of your days just kind of blur together. We live in a really busy culture, so
yeah,
sometimes our schedule controls us instead of us controlling our schedule.
Absolutely. So I really appreciate our time that we get to spend together.
Me too.
We've been meeting for about a month now, plus or minus, because of the trip to Colombia, which we're going to talk about. So, because you're the one that pretty much organized all that, so tell me how this whole Colombia trip became.
That's an excellent question. So, this was my first mission trip to actually lead. I've been on, I think this was my 8th trip, 7th trip or 8th trip. I'm confused about how many times I've been to Nicaragua, which I guess at some point
fair.
You stop keeping count. But it came together really through some connections that I've had from previous trips and a pastor that I know, a former pastor. He used to pastor here. He now takes teams to work in South America in both Panama and Colombia. And he does an incredible job of connecting, churches here in the U.S. from whether it's Georgia or Virginia or Oklahoma or wherever it is to missionaries that are working there and the church planters that they are working with. And so he's kind of a connector. And he does a great job of connecting that and facilitating that and handling all the logistics there. But I got to handle all the logistics here. I got to find the people, do the fundraising, prepare any kind of training that we need in advance, and all of that good stuff. And so, we wanted to go last year, right before. Basically, we launched our church in September as far as a Sunday gathering would go. And people have been talking about wanting to go on a trip, wanting to go, over and over again. But COVID sort of killed all of that as far as international trips went.
It killed my Kenya trip.
Yeah. And honestly, people were a little nervous about getting back out there. And we were too. But at some point, I was like, I feel like God wants us to go. So we're going to do this. And we're going to explore it. And if we can get a team together, then we'll go. And we were super blessed and super fortunate to kind of be able to ask some people and say, hey, is this something that you still want to do? Do you feel comfortable doing this? And nobody was nervous. Nobody was scared. And actually, when we were there, Colombia was a hot spot for COVID, and we had to wear masks. And there was a lot of logistics behind all that way to get tested before we come back into the U.S. And so, it definitely made things more complicated,
right.
But at the same time, there weren't any hurdles that couldn't be overcome.
Very cool. I like it. So you guys, between you two and then you took 6 others, what do you feel the impact as a whole was? We just had your bride in here talking, and I loved what she saw. I love the light bulbs that come on in people's heads. Because you and I have been, all over the world doing stuff, and we get to go and see what that life is. And I know for me, people ask me how I live in America. I'm good. You know. So, but what do you feel the impact over the whole team really was?
So the impact on the team, or our team's impact on the people? Because there's, I think, two different things there.
So I want both. I want on your team. Whenever you guys kind of did a debrief, what do you feel was the just general consensus?
Yeah. So I'm gonna talk about me personally, and I'm gonna talk about the team. I'm gonna do both.
We can do Tyler first.
Okay. Yeah. This is my podcast moment. It's gonna be all
your
about
podcast.
me.
Yes, it is. I'm working on getting everybody else, but this is your moment.
Yeah, this is my moment. All right. So honestly, every trip that I come back from, you hear everyone talk about it. It's usually a group consensus thing that there's this kind of sense of gratitude. You see these people that have the least, and it seems like the people that have the least really do give the most. And they have this joy that's inside of them, at least the Christians do, that I think doesn't come from material things, but it comes from a relationship with other people and a relationship with God. And so there is this different kind of feeling about life when you come back. You begin to look at the world differently. And my wife talked about it, all the things that you think you have to have, or all of the things that you want seem to no longer matter. And one of the great things about her is she saw them and their hospitality in their home, and saw all of these ways that they were really loving on people, even though, you know, they're having to like have us come in waves to like sit at their table, and their table is like wouldn't qualify as a desk here, but it's their dinner table. And really, and they didn't care what their house looked like or what they didn't have. They were just offering everything they did have. And so she came back and she was like, I'm never going to complain about having people in our home several nights a week. Again, I'm never going to complain about it not looking perfect, or we don't have the finances to be hospitable. So, you know, whether or not that like sticks and lasts, it was an incredible aha moment for us. But really for me coming back, it was like a different sense of gratitude. For me, it really just, I don't know, for whatever reason, it may have been the people that we were working with. It may have been that the church planting family is in such a similar season in life that we are. It just kind of hit different. And so it's more like, I don't know if it just hit me on a deeper level, and maybe every time you go, it gets a little bit more intense. I don't know. But this particular trip, it just hit me a little bit different, with a new sense of gratitude. And it's been weird being back. So we were only there for a week. But it feels like I was so immersed that, like, one thing is you have to wear a mask outside there, inside, everywhere. So that's one level of immersion. I'm coming back, I'm like, this feels weird. I feel like I should be putting a mask on even though I'm walking around the middle of a park. So that was one side of things. But really, like, it's I hear people, I don't know how to say this nicely, so I'm just gonna put it bluntly. I hear people complaining about stuff.
Right.
And we all have things that we complain about, whether, you know, oh, it's really hot outside or whatever it is. Or, you know, like, they're doing this, so we don't get to do this. There's all these things that come up. And for me, I'm just like, it's okay. Like, it's beautiful. It could be hotter. We can't do this, but we can do this. And so for me, there's just this sense of gratitude, like, maybe, you know, don't sweat the small stuff.
Right.
And I really saw them using what they had. And so I think for me, it's like, well, instead of talking about what we don't have, what if we used what we have to help people and to give God glory?
Absolutely.
But as a team, so to get to your actual question that you asked me.
Well, I need you to have your moment first.
That's right. I'd have my moment. Now we'll talk about them. I think the one thing that I saw that was really cool and really kind of profound is people finding, if you want to call it their gifting or their calling or their spot, to really be able to be involved and be used by God. And so there were several people that went. I think 5 of them have never been on a trip before.
That's awesome.
We had several of our leaders there. So our kids coordinator, which is my wife, I was there. Our worship leader was there. Our nursery coordinator were there. And then we had, I guess, 4 people that, you know, they come to church regularly. They're not in leadership. They're just ordinary people. Mm-hmm. And to see them specifically, I think really kind of find a place like, hey, like, no, you're not in vocational ministry. I know you don't necessarily have a leadership position in the church, but to see them be like, okay, so this is what it looks like for me to love on people and for me to reach people. That was really cool. And just to see everyone just kind of find their rhythm. And so there was, one person on the trip and was like, oh my gosh, every time you share the gospel, people get saved. I'm sharing the gospel and they're like, okay, that's great. Either I've heard it before or I'm not moved by it, but you're sharing the gospel. And for whatever reason, you sharing it is connecting with people in a different way, which is only a God thing. So you have this incredible gift that you didn't know you had that you discovered on this trip. So it's those things that I think are really cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. So who all went? So we had, I know Devin went, you, Chauncey, Molly, I don't know anybody else. Who else went?
So Katie went, and Mary was able to go. You named 4. I've named 2. Amanda.
Okay.
And
is Amanda the
Amanda has
coordinator?
No, so Heather.
So Heather's the other one.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't know how Heather was.
So we had a whole crew of people.
That's awesome.
And it worked out. It was just the perfect amount of people for the size. Any bigger and we would have overwhelmed them. Any smaller and we wouldn't have been able to do some of the ministry projects that we did. So
perfect.
It was good.
Good. Man, I love it.
What other questions you got for me?
Well, so I'm going to ask you the same question. So your favorite food?
My favorite food. Well, my wife took I can't roll my R's, the arepas. I'm going to go empanadas.
Empanadas. Okay. I like it. And why so?
Why so? Well, one, they're authentic to the area. And I'm a big fan of like trying new food in foreign countries as long as it's properly cooked and all that kind of stuff. And so the empanadas were made not by the church couple, not by the church plant and their family, but by the people that live, I guess, next door to them and have the shop next door to them.
Okay.
And they've been coming around and kind of seeing what this church plant is about, and they've been kind of making a connection there. Cool. And throughout the week, they saw everything that we did for them, and they just wanted to express their gratitude towards us. And so this was also, it was right after I preached on Sunday.
Okay.
And so, they say preaching a 1-hour sermon is like an 8-hour workday. I don't know if they say that because it's true or if it's just funny. A way to, not have to work the afternoon as a pastor. But I was hungry and they were delicious and there was cheese inside of them. And awesome. They just kept bringing them to me.
Yeah.
And so I guess they thought I was like a big dude or something. And I could eat like 12 of them.
Keep going.
But I'm like, whoa.
Like, no, I'm good.
Share with everybody else.
Something happened with when we were in Romania. So it's a customary thing to have a spirit, and it's rude if the host allows it to go like empty or even halfway. So you have to. Megan didn't know this. After 3, you're supposed to turn over the cup, like you finish it and then turn the cup over upside down, so they stop filling it up. Because as a host, it's rude for them to let it get down low. So it's just kind of one of those weird things, but it's just a local customary thing. So man, I love that. And then what about your favorite person?
My favorite person, ooh, that's easy. So Omer is the leader of the family, and so my wife, she talked about the daughter, which is Valerie, and his wife Vanessa. She was awesome. I think she could have talked about her for a long time, but I'm gonna talk about Omer just because I was able to really get to spend some time with him. And so we did a couple of afternoons where we just sat down and talked about how do you plant a church. And so we had to do all this kind of skill training, and it was just cool because we got to take some principles that are fairly common here. So church planting is sort of a trend here. There's lots of books, there's lots of information, and I've had the pleasure of being able to, be trained over the last 2.5 years to do what I do. And there's been some people that have poured into my life. And on the flip side, there's a missionary there that's pouring into him, but he's only getting one dimension, one perspective, one way. And so I was able to sit down and reinforce some of the things that he had learned that were really good, but also to share about maybe a different take on the same topic.
Okay.
And it came different from me because I was actually going through a lot of the similar things. And so we're talking simple stuff like, how do you work a budget? How do you ask people that, really, that are living paycheck to paycheck, or even struggling to be able to, find food to give to a church? Like, how do you do those things, and why would you do them? So we got to talk principles. We also got to talk about how to structure things and how to spend his time more wisely, because like me, he's bivocational. And so there was just a connection there that was really special, but he was just so like happy and so fun loving. And honestly, like, I'm talking about all the things that he learned from me, but I might have learned more from him. And one of my big takeaways was that we are very reliant on all of the things we need to do ministry. So all of the technology, all of the finances, and all that stuff. And they are too, as a church. But because they don't have any of the things, they had to rely on personal relationships and on God's word and on sharing with people. And to see the impact of that, I think, was profound for me. I was like, we don't need all the stuff and all of the things to do ministry. There's a whole other side of ministry that the old pastors way back when called personal work. And that was going to people's homes, getting to know them, meeting needs, sharing the gospel. It was that individual thing that every single person that is a believer in Christ is called to. And to see them really live that out well, because it was literally all they could do, was really impactful on me personally, and a great reminder to say, hey, at some point, like, let's just not focus. Like, the technology stuff is always going to be there. It's always going to be the same. We have great technology, but we could spend all of our time making sure it works right every week and getting the latest and greatest and newest thing. Or we could invest, a couple hours a week just in personal connection. Which do you think is going to pay off more? And for me personally, I think that's one of the reasons coming back that we have actually been leaving every Friday morning and going out and hanging out at the parking lot of the Homeless Alliance and handing out coffee and pastries that have been donated. And so we're able to make a connection other than, finding a way to like outsource it and do it. I'm like, I just need to be around people. That's one of the things, and hear the heartbeat and see the stories and remember why, because it's really easy to get caught up in everything else.
Oh, absolutely, man. Personal connection is the best thing on this planet, I think. You're going through, like, right now at Thrive Community Church. I'm gonna pull this. We're actually Twinkie hats too. Bam. There we go.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we are. Bam. So we're talking about friendship. We're talking about connection. We're talking about community, and it's something I've known for years. But every single time I sit and talk to somebody, I'll ask them, "Who are your 5 closest people?" Do you have 5 closest people? As entrepreneurs, we run around that a lot more often, to where we do have those people, but we're a really rare breed. But most people don't have personal connection, and some people don't even have personal connection inside their family, much less outside of it. And I'm working on this book. It's called The Encouragement Project, but it's specifically designed specifically for people to connect with people. Even if it's just a hello, even if it's just smiling at somebody, buying somebody coffee. If somebody has a birthday or an event in their life, don't just say, "Hi, on Facebook, congratulations." That's stupid. Call them. If you have their phone number, you call them and say, "Hi, a friend of mine lost her mom, or lost her grandmother. I called her up. She says the only person that called her." I've had people that it was their birthday, and I called them up and said, "Roger, you're the only person that called me." And I make it a game with people. It's like, "Am I the only one that called you?" Because I hope others do. But very rarely do people get more than 5 phone calls.
That's right.
If even one. And that really breaks my heart, as being a personal person. People are the only thing that matter on this planet. Physically on this planet, people are the only thing that really matter. God's word, God, and people. So I love that you're going through this community, connectivity, friendship, because so many people need to hear it. And I'm glad that you guys got to take a team down to Colombia to give even more perspective. I think it's fantastic, and I will go eventually.
That's right. Can I get that in writing?
Yeah.
Or
no, I will.
Does this qualify?
No, I mean
it's recorded.
It's recorded.
There's a video of it.
It will be on YouTube. So I will go. It's just a matter of whenever they stop making people do COVID tests.
You're scared of COVID tests?
No, it's a thing that my wife and I have talked about, and
you don't want to get trapped there.
I don't want to get trapped there.
I can completely understand.
So I know with I know the way that a lot of countries are, and where I'd like to go over in Africa, I could get stuck there for a long time.
I can completely understand that, but I also think, I know the way countries work, and for the right price, you can probably get back here with
That's also very
legit-looking test.
That's also true.
Not that I'm necessarily recommending that, but
it's the fact of life.
Yeah,
it's called tea in Kenya. They just need some tea. That's all they need. So, Tyler, what else do you have to share with people about just Colombia and just missions in general, man? Because I mean, you and I could sit here and talk this all day long just because of our experiences. But was there anything different about this trip besides getting to really? I think I heard in your voice and just in the conversation that you had just an extra connection, not only because you were the leader, but because you were also dealing with a pastor that's in the same time period as you are, like going through the same thing. And I know my mentor, my Paul, has told me, Roger, you only have to be a chapter ahead to be a leader. So I feel like that's probably where you were with him.
Yeah, so we were in a lot of ways. So I would say that we are probably right at that, a chapter ahead, because we've been meeting as a church and figuring out how to do relational discipleship for the past 2.5 years. Whereas they did the traditional, when we start the church, we'll have a Sunday gathering and then we're going to try to build the relationships after. But they've only been around for right about almost to a year. And so some of the things we'd already kind of walked through. Or, I have been able to be a lead pastor a little bit longer than he had. And so I'm able to speak into some things that he's just now working through. But on a whole, like if you think about where they're at and where we're at, we're a continent apart, yet they're doing relational discipleship. We do relational discipleship. They are a young church plant. We are a young church plant. And the similarities were much greater than the differences. And so if I was going to say, hey, we're going to take Thrive Community Church and we're going to plant a church in Bogota, Colombia, it would look like their church. And he had this posture of openness. You could tell he just wanted to learn. And he listened so well. He asked great questions. And we'd talk about a principle, and then he'd figure out, how do I apply this in my situation? And so he'd ask follow-up questions. So to see that, and he's an incredibly smart guy. Like I said, I'm bivocational. He was bivocational. His whole family is involved in ministry. My whole family is involved in ministry. So seeing all of that was just really beautiful. And so, yeah, it just like impacted me a little bit different. But as a whole, it kind of impacted our whole team a little bit different as well, I think. There was just this level of connection that you don't always get. I've been on trips where I'm like, we did some good stuff. We did some humanitarian stuff. We shared the gospel with a few people. But honestly, I've been like, I probably won't come back here. I'm not sure. I'm sure this was a trip for somebody, but this doesn't seem like the trip for me. I think God had a reason that I was here. I was able to do some stuff. But I didn't feel that connection. Because that's what every church's dream is, to find a person or a church plant or an organization or a missionary that they can connect with and build that relationship over time, because you're able to do more when you get through that introductory, this is our first time serving together phase. And so we were able to look and say, hey, we want to come back here next year.
Right now,
we want to come back. And so that was cool.
That connection with the.
Absolutely.
That's awesome, man. That's so great. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this one. This really means a lot to me because this is my heart and my passion. Man, I love ministry. I love foreign mission work. And I love that my wife and I get to come to a church that it's mission minded, not just internationally, but domestically and nationwide.
Well, and let me point this out. I know we're closing out, but let me tell you why we went, which might be important. The reason,
I think that's important. You should share.
Why we went is because, one, we have a heart for people. And so we've talked about friendship, we've talked about connection, we talked about people. We really believe that people aren't projects, but they really are people. And it's really easy to go on a trip or look at a ministry and say, you know, how can we help them? And when you start using that kind of language, them and help, really quickly it becomes like this project where we're just like going to come in, we're going to just like, you know, solve all of their problems, and then we're going to leave and never come back, and we're going to feel good about ourselves. But there is that personal side. The people are people, and we want to be able to reach them, and we want to be able to do that in the regular, ordinary, like day stuff. So we're trying to take the gospel from being like a Sunday thing to an everyday thing, and for you to help people to realize that mission is everywhere. Mission is at your job. Mission is at Sunday school. There's lots of lost people in church, and they may show up and they may hear my message and not really be that impressed with it, but your conversation is an opportunity for a mission. When you go and have your play date at the park, that is your spot if you're a stay-at-home mom. It's so much bigger. And so we wanted to develop this culture of mission here. And so the idea is that we took 8 people there, but that they would be so profoundly changed by the experience because you're outside of your comfort zone, like you're outside of your cultural norms, so you will do things that you wouldn't typically do in a positive way.
Yep.
Well, what if you came back and started sharing with your neighbors and your friends about Jesus? It's easy to share with a stranger. It's much harder to share with people that you know sometimes, and in a culture that you know, because there, like, we're leaving, like, whatever backlash there might be for people sharing the faith, like, we don't have to live with that day in and day out. Versus here, like, people might find out. We might get a reputation as people, and you think that would be a positive thing, but so many times it's a negative thing. And so we want this culture of mission to be rooted into our church, which is the reason why we went. And we want to see our city reach for the gospel, because amazingly enough, Roger kind of alluded to this at one point, but only 60% of the people that in Oklahoma have actually heard about Jesus and heard the story, which is insane, because you think this is like, they call this place the buckle of the Bible Belt.
Yeah, the buckle of the Bible Belt. Yeah.
So that's our heart behind it. It's not that we think that we can do something that other people can't do. We just want to see more people on mission for Jesus.
Absolutely. Tyler, thanks for coming on, brother.
Love you.
See you Sunday, man.